when I was offered the opportunity to come here and host this, I was really excited because, when I work in the startup community, I'm often working with companies that are dealing with a lot of leadership and culture challenges. And it's very easy in startup world to talk about the tech because that's, the part that we really want to solve, right? The deep tech is all about, being at the front edge of what's possible and seeing if we can make it happen. And what I see so often is that people go through this process of developing something and then they go out into this commercial world, this brutal commercial world, which is the vehicle that is going to give birth to their idea. Without the commercial world, then deep tech stays stuck in a lab somewhere mostly. So that's where I think it becomes really interesting to maybe open up the discussion a little bit towards leadership and culture and some of the challenges you face on your journey, and give us some insights about that, because I think this is something that people are looking at too late in their development as entrepreneurs and founders. So I know, Martin, you are founder of Axis, currently 3,000 employees.
3,500?
3,500, 50 countries?
Staff in 50 countries.
Yeah.
Sales all over.
Yeah, so it's a huge team. Stina, founder of Yubico, 220 employees.
240 today.
240, yeah, in 8 countries.
Yes.
Yep. And Nicolas, founder of HMS. Yep. Currently at around 600 people in 16 countries, even though you're no longer actively involved in the business. So I just want to start with a really general question, which is, when did you realize that leadership was going to be a big part of your founder journey? When did leadership really start to just turn up on your desk as something that you needed to focus on? Would you mind beginning?
First of all, too late. From beginning, I know now, the first years I was a pretty bad leader. And when it came to me was, the company grew, I had come to maybe 10 employees. And I found a really good mentor. I didn't have a board of directors at that time, but the mentor can sometimes be better than the board. And when he was visiting me first time, it stacked up a queue outside my office, and people came and they wanted to talk to me for some small decision and so on. And one of the first things he told me, you have to change your way of leading this company and you have to delegate. I said, what is that? And then I learned, he taught me how to delegate, and I learned from him how to be a much better leader.
And how far into the business journey was that?
I said too late, but let's see, 10 employees.
10 employees.
7-8 million in revenues.
Right.
Swedish millions.
And one of the things that I think people do not understand is how quickly 10 employees can suck all of your time. And that it doesn't need to be scaling to hundreds of people before the leadership challenges appear. And this is something that I think is really not spoken often about, is how quickly these problems start to turn up once you start moving out. Stina, what about for you?
I was absolutely convinced when I started Yubico that I would just be the CEO for a year.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to start the company. No one else wanted to start it. And I couldn't take any salary, so who would want to work for me as a CEO if I can pay you? So I was the only one in the company.
Right. Yeah.
And that, when you're the CEO, the only person, and not even paid, you're not really a CEO, you're just someone, doing things.
Yeah.
And then I was so fortunate, a year later, I ran into an internet security podcaster who just turned me from no one knowing about our product to sort of, we are the cool thing that 100,000 people were now listening to. And one of the people who listened to the podcast was a man named John Salter. He was in England and he had been a CEO for a startup. He came to me and he said, Stina, I would love to help you grow your business. And the reason why he reached out to me is that on the podcast, the guy said, and so what's your next challenge? They're like, I don't know how to build a business.
Right.
And I'm looking for man in a grey suit,
Yeah.
the business guy.
Yeah.
For some reason, I had this envision it had to be a grey-haired man with a grey suit. I don't know, very, you know, what do you call it, judgmental? You know, very pessimistic, stereotype. And so I was going to put it out there, and then this guy with a grey hair and a grey suit literally contacted me, listening to that podcast, and said, I've been a CEO. I've been running startups. I love your idea and your vision of making the internet safer for all. I'm so inspired. How can I help? And I said, you can be my CEO. And he said, well, let's discuss.
That's like asking someone to marry you on the first date. It's like, nice to meet you, let's get married. That's quite a step.
I mean, the reality of the Dharma had like 40,000 kroner on the bank account, and I went over to Heathrow because he was in London, and we sat for 3 hours, and he then convinced me I could stay as a CEO, and he would do everything I didn't want to do. What a fantastic leadership opportunity.
Yeah, I mean,
I just
you could have married that guy.
She was married.
I mean, you met him after.
Yeah.
He was just like, he was this kind of the structured guy who knew how to do things, and I just did a personality test, and I'm actually a maverick. I don't know if you can do this personality test. He doesn't follow rules a lot, and doesn't, really comply to things, and don't know how to do things. And he was this guy who actually knew how to do things. So together we were this perfect team, and I think I realized the power of teamwork. You don't have to know everything. You don't have to be best at everything. You can, and my strength was that I'm completely fearless. I don't know where I got it from. And I completely believe in what I'm going to do. And that's also really important.
It is, it's really, really important.
And I'm super optimistic. And I think that when it comes to culture and leadership, when there's a crisis, because there's always a crisis when you lead a startup, and someone then has to not go into fear. And I'm that person. It's like, I don't know what to do. I don't have any experience, but we'll find a solution.
Right. So 3 key points straight out of that story, which is you just put your hand up and said, I don't know what I'm doing.
No, exactly.
Who wants to come along for the ride?
Exactly.
Number 2, you're fearless. And number 3 is that your ability to attract people to your idea. The idea was strong enough, and your personality was strong enough to attract somebody that was really willing to go the extra mile for you.
And do the stuff that I didn't know how to do well, and that's fantastic. So I was forced to delegate because I was so lazy at a lot of things. I mean, if everyone said, Stina, you need to take care of finance and administration and legal, and you have to take care of that, then I would not start a company. So I don't know if you agree.
Yes, please, I'd love to hear you. What happened for you?
Well, I have a very different story. So, because we were 3 founders of Axis, and one of them, he was an MBA from Handels, and he really studied management, so he was really interested in that. But I do recognize Nicolas, the queue outside my office, because I became the R&D manager. And I also realized the need to delegate. But Michael actually took care of the whole company. So we basically grew up to like 50 employees without spending any time on the corporate culture. Because the company culture basically reflected, who we were. So the third founder, he actually made the 2 most important parts of Axis, because he defined the name. Because we were called Gren and Carlson before, and he was a British guy. And the second thing was that he defined our business model, which is indirect sales in a 2-tiered manner, which I can talk about for hours, how important the business model is. But anyway, so the first cultural challenge was that, like all Swedish companies, we wanted to set up business in the US, and I wanted to set it up in Silicon Valley, of course. And Michael, he was more realistic and said, let's go East Coast, because not too much time difference. It's not as intense competition for staff and so on. There are so many reasons for not establishing in Silicon Valley.
Unless you're an internet security company.
Exactly.
Or internet company.
But you are the big exception here, I think.
I would say, you are not that dependent dependent on being close to the internet giant.
No.
So I think.
There was hardly no internet
Yeah,
when I started.
1996,
No, 1984. So we set up our first office in the US in Boston, the beautiful city. And we hired an American because Michael believed in having locals.
Yeah.
So we got this, he could eat hamburgers and he knew how to shoot. I mean, he was really understanding the local culture. It was actually democratic. But anyway, we thought it was really cool because he worked for a competitor. He had a good reason for leaving. So we said, okay, great, this is going to work. It was a complete failure. And every time we met, it was good. And then when we did not meet, it was all bad. And we actually managed to sell a lot in Canada, but not in the US. And the reason is that the culture is quite different. And Canada, I think, should join Scandinavia. And then we said, okay, so in our industry, we didn't have Silicon Valley, we had Japan, because we were a print server company, and all print manufacturers were Japanese. So we decided our second office would be Tokyo. And we spent a lot of time. Michael moved there for a couple of months, and I traveled quite often. And we hired some locals, and we hired some people who were more like me and Michael, although Japanese.
Yeah.
And one of them is actually still working for us. And with this, we saw that, okay, they speak Japanese, they look different, and they have a very different culture. But hey, they're consensus-oriented. They're quite similar to us. And then we realized, hey, it's a corporate culture. So we started heavy working on implementing what we call the core values.
Yeah.
So we defined the core values of Axis, and it was very much built from the knowledge we got from the establishment in Japan, and also the failure we had in the US, although we didn't really know it was a total failure. And funny thing was that when we opened up the next offices, so after Tokyo, we set up in Hong Kong, then we set up in Shanghai, then in Sao Paulo, and all with really short payback time from the day we established the office until we actually made a profit.
Yeah.
And not until 1996 we started setting up in Europe. And it was these core values that was the foundation of adding up more and more offices. And actually, it took a long time for us to get the US right. So what we did, we set up a West Coast office. It was in San Diego, in La Jolla. Couldn't be better, actually. And after some time, we had more sales out of the La Jolla office than we had from the Boston office. And then we had to give an offer he couldn't refuse for the guy running the West Coast office to take over Boston. And then we got the culture back.
Right.
And now today, I mean, I think more than 50% of our sales are in North America. So now we really cracked the nut. We actually have 7 different regional offices now that we call experience centers. So it's where you can go and have a look at all our products. And we're actually opening up in Silicon Valley. Finally! But it's for sales, it's not for R&D.
No, very expensive to do R&D in Silicon Valley. I can confess that.
There are several steps in the leadership when you build the company. So the first one I explained about that I think I shared with you.
Delegate.
Delegate.
Yeah.
Then you have the second step where you put together a management team. And most, also fairly small, have that on their webpage. This is our management team. But does that team really work as a team? So that's the next step, to get the management team to work. And after that, you hit maybe 50 employees, and the company grows. In my case, it grew to about 90 employees, and I made the next step of the business plan, and I knew I would double the company. So employing about 90 the next 1-2 years, and I realized, hey, I need an HR manager. Okay, so I employed a really good, young, but really good HR manager with the mission to employ 90 persons.
Right.
So quite a job to get.
We had as a policy of not having HR manager.
But I realized that was no good
But when we
policy.
became 500, we finally added it.
But the HR manager and me sat down, and we went through all the people in the company, and she of course asked me, how many managers do you have? And we started drawing the organization chart. And I actually didn't know, so I had to ask her, go out, I need to sell, I'm traveling to Japan and I need to prepare that. And as a CEO, I was also the sales guy.
Yeah.
So when I came back, she had counted and made a complete map of how many managers we actually had, that in turn had somebody reporting to them. We had lots of managers. Of the 90, about 30 managers. And then we realized the next challenge, although I was at that time a much better leader, not perfect, but much better, and I had a really good working management team. But we had additionally 30 persons who did not have any training how to be a manager. So that was one more step to lift the middle management in the company. And that made a miracle in the company to do that.
Right.
But then I didn't have to delegate anything anymore because everything was just taken care of.
Do you think in general the people that are attracted to deep tech are the people that can move a company forward and a company culture forward?
Yes.
Is it, yeah?
I think so, because it's forward-thinking people who are curious about doing something new and then explore new territories, and with that comes an open mind.
Right.
I mean, it's in general, if you look at the people who are attracted to tech, it's often an international crowd. A lot of people, I mean, here in Sweden, there's a lot of talent from all over Europe who comes here.
Yeah.
And I mean, just see the rooms in here.
Yeah.
And I believe that, I personally believe that people who are attracted to tech have the ability to build really good culture. I mean, there is no reason they couldn't be better than any other sort of industry.
Right. And, you know, what were some of the, I mean, we already talked about the need to delegate, but what were some of the early leadership lessons that you had to learn to actually be able to move the company forward? So obviously being fearless and being a maverick, very helpful, but I imagine you also need to have some level of discipline and consistency as well. So for each of you, what were the things that you had to do to really embrace that leadership role?
Well, in my case, it was the corporate culture and the core values.
Mm-hmm.
So we could immediately, once we understood this, it took a very long time to get it right in the US.
Mm-hmm.
So it took like 5 or 6 years from the day we realized it until we actually got it implemented. But otherwise, I mean, the lack of culture is always the early warning that sales are going to decline.
Right.
So
why is that? That's a really interesting observation. Why, what's the link between sales and culture?
because this has to do with the way we do business. Because we do business in an ecosystem where we sell indirect in 2 tiers. And the culture is basically a reflection of the business model.
Mm-hmm.
And when the culture is not there, when people don't understand how to use the business model for making the business, and then it fails. Because we do cameras, right?
Mm-hmm.
But nobody wants to buy cameras, at least on an enterprise level. What they want is security and peace of mind.
Mm-hmm.
And they just use the camera as a tool. But you don't only need the cameras, you need cables, you need mounts, you need metal protections, nobody cuts off the cables. You need software, hardware, switches, routers, blah, 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, no company can provide everything. And that's what our business model makes. Make sure that all this comes and everyone works together like a symphony orchestra.
Mm-hmm.
And when you understand this, then you understand the culture and you can see that things are going right. And when people don't understand the culture, sales will decline or will not build up.
Very interesting, that connection between sales and culture. And Stina, for you?
Yeah, for me, I was struggling the first years, but I had super clear idea that I wanted Google as a customer, and I had no idea how I would get them because I
But
haven't
didn't
seen
you get Google from the podcast? You got
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
But when the podcast went out, it actually took another year.
Right.
And when I got Google as a customer, I knew I had a very clear direction and business plan. It was just a third of a page. As we need to be in Silicon Valley.
Mm-hmm.
We only need 5 customers.
Yeah.
We need Google and then Facebook, Microsoft, Apple, and Amazon, and maybe a couple of browsers.
Mm-hmm.
Then we can win the world. We don't need a big investment. We don't need big sales team, we just need to be there. And
I'm glad you didn't ask me for advice because I would have said don't do it.
Many others gave that advice.
Yeah, but you know what, I was too, and I actually had one board member who, I don't have to go into detail, but really said, Stina, you are a maverick, and you're actually putting the company at risk now.
Right.
So, and just sorry. So yes, but you know what? With that, we had a very clear direction of the company because this is what I wanted, which was much bigger than building a company.
Yeah.
I wanted to build a new global standard, just like Ericsson did with GSM, that would secure 4 billion people.
Which is the FIDO.
The FIDO WebAuthn that's now integrated into all leading platforms and browsers, and it's. With this, I was able to attract the best people on the planet, literally the best customers, the best investors. And it wasn't like we were, I think it was just sort of the passion for something bigger, for doing something that is beyond just a company. Yeah.
It's really
and the best evidence was when Apple was one of our customers. And I met a guy there who said, well, I don't think your software is so easy to work on. Is there anything you can do to improve it? And I just said, you know what? You can come and help me. And he said, I like to build things that scale to a lot of people. You know, that's sort of that's why I like working with these big tech giants. And I said, if you come and work with Yubico, you're not only going to secure Apple, you're going to secure everyone, 4 billion people. That's much bigger than Apple.
Amazing.
and that was exactly the words he needed to hear to sort of like, this is a big journey. And our company really sort of gathered around that mission. And when it was difficult, I just said, you know what, we can't give up because then the internet's going to fade. You know, we can't, that's much, it's like we can't abandon such a big mission. And that could keep us going. And just we built that sort of core tiger team around the mission.
And one of the things that I can see that you really have a gift for, because I would now want to work for you because I don't know anything about what you do, but it's the ability to evangelize a bigger vision.
Yeah, I mean, before that, I just said, I have a security key. It's a USB key, and it's sort of cool. And people said, oh, no, it's not cool. Keys are the 90s.
Hey, you secure the internet, I secure the world.
Yeah.
Not a competition.
I think we're fine.
Security, have fun. But what about for you? So, you're building a business. The leadership lessons are the hardest one for you. Tell me.
Well, the hardest one.
I mean, delegating, that's kind of like
I think it also touches the same base. It was when I realized how important clear vision and good, strong corporate values, how much that helps when growing fast. So a good and clear vision and clear company values actually beats any strategy, I would say. And that was there from the beginning. When I started with the company, 21 years old, fresh out from university, I had the vision that I would sell this product all over the world and into all factories and so on. And then step by step, company values were there, but I didn't communicate them. So I think it's a little bit like Martin did. After about 7-8 years, we articulated what the values were and we started communicating those. We used them in recruiting, and also the company was at that size, so I wasn't present everywhere anymore. And that's a big help. So that's my key finding.
It's interesting you say that because I've just been working with a smaller company that is growing really fast. Currently at around 25 people, but they're getting a lot of very big contracts, very interesting things. People are working extremely hard, and when I speak to the staff, they're like, what are we doing this for? What's the end goal? Like, we can keep working hard, but where are we going? And I think that it's really so important that leaders are able to continually say, we're going there.
Yes.
This is where we're going, this is why we're doing this. Because people will definitely invest in that, and obviously they did with you.
I think one other part of it is if when you have an important and sort of super serious mission as we have, it's even more important to nurture the fun and the nice and the happiness. So I didn't think about that in the beginning, but I spend more time to sort of how can I make my team smile? What can I do to sort of nurture the other, so I did bring in an HR manager and I said, your job is to make people smile. That's, smile. And smile is sort of, maybe sounds a little sort of flaky, but it's, on many levels, are people happy? Do they feel, it's a workspace, it's, do they, the right motivation, not just sort of, hey, we have an important mission. And what I've noticed is, just like I'm talking now, if you can sort of figure out those little fun things that can make people laugh, feel good stories to tell, pick up a few things that have happened in the company, someone that did. One story that I just told my team the other day was hilarious, but it was so cute. It was one of our team members, he had collected a lot of scrap YubiKeys. They were during the manufacturing process, some things have been during the years. And we gave it to him, and he then took the gold, because it's a little gold thing. He went to goldsmith and extracted it and made a wedding ring out of YubiKeys. That's a fantastic story to tell the team. Not to like he was a thief. But stole all that gold.
But does he understand
YubiKey is a gold mine.
No, but that's the kind of, and if you look for those, feel good stories, we all love them, and then keep you going.
Yeah, it's fantastic. One of the other things that you're doing there, which is really, really clever, is that, recently I was in a company and they brought me in to do some things, and the manager said, the people here, we're really, really connected, everything's great. And then he walked me through the office, and as he walked through the office, I noticed people stopped smiling, put their heads down, started pretending to work. And it was just a really telling moment. I was like, things really are not okay here. But one of the things you're doing by having fun is giving people permission that we work hard and we do great work, but we don't have to be serious all the time or be like this stern-faced deep tech.
And exactly, and on that matter around serious, I actually got a question. It was a journalist just the other day who came and said, hey, what is the best and the worst advice you got? And one of the best was actually Per who said, go and look for a customer who can pay for your bills. That was one of the best advice. And another really, really bad advice I got that I never followed, and I'm so happy I did. It was someone says, Stina, you're so honest and transparent. You should. He literally said, don't show weakness and don't apologize. What a crappy advice.
Well, you were just ahead of your time, because if you look on LinkedIn now, every second post says, show your weaknesses and apologize.
I was actually...
So you were the vulnerability maverick going forward.
I can actually share a story, but it is sort of strange. But I was in a super, really tough investor situation where they were super hard with me, and they didn't want... I had terms that I wanted, and they didn't gonna give me these terms. And for some reason, I was just exhausted. And I don't know what happened, but I started crying. And for some reason, God knows how it came.
In front of them.
In front of them. And I got nose blood. So it's like this blood and tears.
Hey, here's the money. Take it.
Literally, exactly what happened. I just gave up. I just said, and then they came running with handkerchiefs. Sorry, of course you get what you need. I had no idea it was the perfect strategy.
This, ladies and gentlemen, is ninja level information. We are speaking with a Jedi.
I didn't plan it because it sounds like, I'm going to be vulnerable. Like, no, it just happened and God helped me.
We actually have sort of that as one of our core values, because we have always open. And then we explain what does always open mean. And number one is, of course, to be open, to be transparent, and also to bring out the bad news at once. And I think it's very similar, to what you did. Of course, it doesn't mean cry when you need to, but it does.
It's super important. And if you embed that into your culture, what's going to happen is people will be able to develop much more quickly. Because what happens is people don't have to say, hide the fact that they don't know something. They can just say, I don't know. Quite often when I'm working with teams, I say, if someone says, I don't know, you have to give them a high five. It's like, make that part of your company culture. You can move things forward.
Not knowing is actually the opportunity for growth and innovation and
And in
exploration.
deep tech, it's got to be like half of your life.
mean,
Isn't it half of your waking life is not knowing in deep tech?
Yeah.
So you have to get
So
rid
that's
of
why we have our second core value, which is act as one, which translates into that if you don't know, you should at least try to figure out to help the person who needs information to get the right information. And of course, if you look on other companies' core values, you will actually learn that many are quite similar. So for instance, our main distributor, they basically share core values with us.
Fantastic, yeah. I mean, it's very common that these values now are the ones that companies are pushing forward because they see the commercial value for the company of having those kinds of values. It retains people, it helps the innovation, and
in tech, yes, there are companies who actually have, patents and, factories and other sort of very core assets, but the main asset is always the people. And if you don't attract them and retain them, you lose a lot. So, so you definitely need to care about the core values and the culture, because people can, we live in an environment where there's more requests for people who works in IT than there are jobs available.
Yeah. It's a very, very competitive market.
Yeah.
Right? So when I was Googling deep tech the other day, the first thing that came up was hardware is hard. Well, there you go.
Exactly.
What else do we need to know? Hardware is hard. Let's take
It's
the
not
rest.
only hard, but no one wanted to invest in hardware.
Right.
It's sort of strongly accused still. The reality is, and it is hard. You need to physically build products and ship them, and when it's a software, you can just push a button and 1 million people can have it.
Right. So that means that deep tech, by its very nature, is about long-term relationships.
Yeah.
You're in it for the long haul. It's not like, let's see if this works out, and maybe if not, in 6 months we'll go our separate ways. It's like, if you're going down this road, you really have to make that commitment. So that brings me to choosing founding partners. How did you go about doing that?
Well, in my case, it was initially, I knew since I was 11 years old that I wanted to start a company.
Fantastic.
And that was at a time when starting a company, that was something you did if you couldn't get a proper job like a cleaner.
Tell me about
So, and we were taxed more than 100%. So I wanted to start my own company anyway. And I knew it was going to be with electronic hardware because that's what I loved. So that was no question. And then I was brought together by a common friend who said, hey, I know this guy who wants to become an MBA and he also wants to start a company. You two should talk. So then he brought us together and we realized, okay, we both want to do a company. And then we were consultants with really just a vision of looking for a product ID. And once we got this product ID should work, so this was connecting a printer to an IBM mainframe back in the dark ages. And so we put together this product, and then Michael said, you know what? I don't know much about sales. You don't know much about sales. We need to bring in a partner who knows about sales. And we found this British guy, and we wanted to bring him in. And after some time, we made a deal. And he basically said, okay, but you have to define the business model. You shall never compete with your customers. So he said, the two-tiered indirect sales, which I keep on coming back to. And then secondly, he didn't like our name, Axis, Gren and Carlson Firmware, as we were called by then. So we offered him to be Gren and Carlson and Bloodworth Firmware. He refused and said it was going to be Axis. A, because it's
God bless him.
A is first in the alphabetical order,
Yep.
and then he was British. So we said to him, but you know what? Axis, doesn't that mean like axes and eagles? And Keith, being British, he said, no, we've forgotten about the war. Right. Anyway, he convinced us and it became Axis. With the business model of never bypassing the channel.
Fantastic. And now you have a very good reason for choosing your founding partner.
Yes, it's my husband.
Yeah. Yeah.
My father, no, the father of my 3 children.
Yeah.
And yes, we have a fun history. I studied industrial product design, and I had a challenge. I wasn't sure. I was doing a remote control. I wasn't sure if the concept would work, and I was introduced to Jacob, and he came back with a working prototype.
And you were like, I gotta marry this.
Exactly. Other men have tried the dinners and
Give
flowers.
a guy an idea, he comes back to the prototype.
But he had a super cool background. We actually started dating when he was 25, and at the time he had been assigned because it was a big project. I can talk about this now, but it was super secretive at the time.
Right.
So it was Forsmark kärnkraftverk, which is the biggest nuclear plant here in Sweden, that needed a security system, just both logical and physical security. And they brought in a big SI that was going to do it and completely failed, and the security of Sweden was at risk. And someone who knew someone said, well, there's this guy Jacob somewhere who can probably help, because he's one man, super geek, who had understood security. And he was brought in and he fixed it. And so that was sort of the first project, not the first project we did together, but that's when I went to Konstfack, and he built the security system, and eventually our talents sort of merged, where he wanted just build things. He does not want to talk to investors or sit in a sort of panel like this or build a team. You know,
he was really happy to be behind the scenes.
Yeah, and every time I asked him, Jacob, you did. So you know what? He just accepted yesterday, and which is sort of fun, to be co-founder. So I'm actually, yes, I just degraded from founder to co-founder. Literally. So this is the story.
How long is this now?
12 years ago.
12 years.
Yeah, okay, so I can tell you the story. So I started Yubico, and Jacob was there from the beginning. He built the working prototype, and he said, Stina, I sort of love you, and that's why I'm helping you here on the side, but I have another job.
I sort of like it. That's deep technical, let's get there.
And I said, but you are the co-founder of this company. No, I'm not the co-founder of this company. That's your project. And now, just last week, I said, Jacob, now we're 240 people. We're doing about, we're going to do about 80 million, like $800 million in revenue this year, and we're valued 6 billion Swedish kronor. Do you accept to be a co-founder now? And he said yes.
So now it's time to propose for
Yeah.
a
So unfortunately we need to change. I have to put it on my LinkedIn, like everything. I'm just degraded to co-founder,
Wow.
but I think it's okay.
I mean, I thought upgrading my Facebook status, getting in a relationship was a big deal. This is really close.
No, and he's actually really, really happy being co-founder. He thought we did a good job.
Yeah.
And he was completely fundamental. So that someone said, in order to build a company, you need an evangelist. I build that. You need someone who can build a great product. And you need someone who takes care of the sort of structure and order and legal and business. And John Salter came in, and then my CFO, Matthias, they were that sort of third sort of foundation that complemented me and Jacob really well. So I wouldn't say they're co-founders, but they came in fairly early to build the parts that Jacob and I completely missed. I was actually named the administrative black hole. Someone said, Stina, now you're going to start a company and you need to take care of administration, finance, and legal. I was just, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to
The
do it.
maverick. Always the maverick. Yeah. Did you found your company on your own, or did you have somebody beside you?
No, I founded it on my own, and I ran it for 1.5 years. It was actually profitable, but still I was thinking, beginning to think I need to expand. I had been thinking of employing someone for a while, but I was so busy in developing the products, delivering. At that time, we also built the hardware. I built it. So I developed I think development was late evenings. Manufacturing was a little bit nighttime and afternoons. And then mornings, probably selling. That was, and then some administration, always on Sundays. Lucky to have an accountant as a family friend who taught me economics I'm a technician. He taught me economics on Sundays. So that was the 1.5 year, and I came to about 1.3 million in revenues, and although I developed a bit, the company was profitable. At that time, there was no venture capital. We're talking 1988, or at least I didn't know anybody who had venture capital. So I just had to make the company profitable.
Right.
And I worked a lot. Anyway, so I think the most important in successful companies with several founders and success over time is
Because you're an investor now, right?
yeah,
So-
and I have seen several other companies now. That's really interesting, the reflections I make when I help other companies that grow rapidly and what happens, and founders, how they act. But the most important founders is that they, and I think you have that, you touched that, is that they complement each other. We all have weaknesses, although we can do some development and sales. Maybe a really good deep tech founder is also quite good at selling what he does. Martin might not know that he did R&D, but I think he's a great salesman as well, convincing very big demanding customers. I think you're a really good seller. I wouldn't like to negotiate with you. So to complement each other. And then as the company evolves, you focus on what you're absolutely best on.
Yep.
And you build with people around you that are better at other things. But in my case, after 1.5 years, I ran into an old friend from university. He had done completely different things, but we had worked a little bit together at the university, and he thought that was cool, the company I founded with communication in machines. And he came back to me and said, I want to come work for you, I need a job. And then I realized, yes, I definitely need someone, but then I offered him to be a partner instead. So that was an occasion, in my case.
Yeah.
But founders really need to complement each other. That's where the music comes.
Right. So now we've done leadership, we've done some culture, and now I'd like to talk a little bit about challenges inside deep tech companies and startups. So one of the things that is, obviously much different, you touched on this when you said, if you're a software company, you press a button, boom, it can go to 1 million people. But scaling your business when it's deep tech is hugely challenging, right? Sometimes the economic challenge that each of you went through scaling your business and how it worked for you. We could start with you, Martin. And then after that, I'm going to open the floor to some questions. So if you have any burning questions, get ready to ask them.
So in my case, when we set up Axis, so we actually had one principle we decided upon very early, and that was that we should not treat Sweden as a home market. Sweden is a funny, strange country with a funny language. We have polar bears and all the streets, right? So we decided to keep Germany as our home market. So once we signed up our very first customer, and this very first customer, of course, it was already from the beginning the two-tiered model. So there was a distributor and an integrator behind. So then we said, okay, for Germany. And why did we pick Germany? Well, we are Swedish, Keith, he was British, so England was out of the question because of that. And because we live in southern Sweden, Denmark is also out of the question because you can't do business there. And US is too far away. And Germany was a good compromise. In Germany, it's quality concern. Michael and I, we spoke reasonably good German. And we said, okay, we have to do everything in English now, all the data sheets, all the documentation, quality needs to be good enough so that the Germans not like it. And it's a big market. So we spent all our time on making sure it was working in Germany. And that was a fantastic thing. And with our business model because our business model is totally scalable. I mean, production, I've never liked production, and neither did Michael or Keith, so we decided let's outsource that up. Factories all over the world, we can't invest in that. We are an extremely horizontal company. So we define the products, we design them, and then we sell them. And thanks to the business model, we can always talk to the end user because we never bypass the channel. It means everyone can trust us. And that means that we can help the customer really get the best solution. And then it's fulfilled by the channel.
Fantastic.
Even I tried to buy cameras from Martin, and he let me go through a distributor. So he really sticks to that.
No,
Doesn't
you
help
probably had to buy from an integrator. I don't think you could buy from an integrator.
We do have some special discounted guide to be on the wall, thing walls.
I can't. I have no way to ship it to you. The only way I can ship is to the district. Then you can go buy it at like Dustin, and Dustin is actually a reseller, not a distributor. Or CDW if you want to have
That's
it.
a really good way of not having to give your friends and family discounts on your product.
Yes.
It's like, here's the website.
No, we can't. We really cannot.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, and I tried several times with Martin. I also tried
I've given you a
with his
few
CEO. But at that one occasion, he said, "Well, Nicholas, I have an idea. I have this brand new camera that I'm just starting to test, and I need another tester." Then I got that one.
I'll give you a camera next time. If you promise to install it.
Yes, absolutely, I would love to.
Scaling, Steve.
Scaling, I mean, we've had all the challenges you can just sort of list from being a startup. You know, we didn't have the money, we didn't have the team, we didn't have the customers, we didn't have the brand. I mean, you just sort of, when we started.
Yeah.
Right now, we have a lot of those things in place, but we have very aggressive new investors who are super cool, but they want to build a unicorn out of Yubico, and multi-billion-dollar company. I tried. There was actually Andreessen Horowitz. They approached me 1.5 years ago, and there was this guy who was super excited and said, "I'm talking to all these CISOs, and they talk about your product." And I was a little cautious bringing him on board because I knew the pressure. I did bring them on board. They're fantastic. They open doors that they would never have before, but I feel the pressure. They don't accept like we're doubling. They want us to triple every year in sales, and I'm trying to really figure out that business model. Is that through the channel or distributor? How do I, what's that sort of secret formula of mass scaling and continue to, keep the culture and the values and the quality and, to just don't blow up too fast, because I see a few companies in Silicon Valley who bring in too much money and grow too fast and sort of holding back, but figuring out how can I help it and make everyone happy here. The team, the investors, the customers. So that's my biggest challenge right now. I don't have that formula, and I would love to have it. So anyone know?
I think you need to use a distributor.
Okay.
You know why? Because you have a one contract with a distributor. Then the distributor has contract with all the other customers. So you don't need to negotiate distribution contracts all the time.
I would love to have a meeting with your major sales leader. Is he the one in the US, the guy that was the
Well, you
best
can
one?
probably ask me.
Okay. Anyway, we will meet. We'll meet. Something like that.
You
needs
still
to
want to
happen.
get a camera?
I'm getting it. I'm going to buy a camera.
No, I'll give you a prototype.
I'll see some keys.
I already have.
Okay.
Last time you gave me a lot of Yubi keys.
Okay, I can give you more.
Don't be seeing that prototype. You know what happens.
Oh, no. I'm already married. No problem.
Scaling.
Well, then I'll start with I propagate for direct sales to the most demanding customers. Direct, nothing in between. You have all the marketing on your side.
Yeah.
And already from before, when founding the company, I had a letter of intent of a demanding customer that said, if you can design this product, it works according to this specification, we will buy this much and we will use your product in all our machines. And that actually came back in different phases of HMS growth. So also when we did complete new product generation, we always had one, at that time of course, 5 demanding customers already when specifying that next generation product. So that helped scale. So already from the beginning, you have a customer on board. And then that demanding customer changed over time. But I think the most important, although Japan became our most important market, the most important customer from the beginning was the Swedish company Atlas Copco. And they in turn helped us to get outside of Sweden, and actually they helped me getting into Japan as well. So it's close cooperation with demanding industrial customers very early, and that's the formula. But the challenges of scaling was more in our case as a hardware company, although 90% of the product is software, but it's packaged into a hardware module, was probably quality and production and being able to ramp up volumes enough. I underestimated that, especially quality. If you're going to sell to Japanese robot manufacturers, quality is important.
Yeah, definitely. Are there any questions from the audience at this point? Great.
I have one.
Great.
So Nicolas, I think with this the LOI trick or whatever you want to call it. I mean, that's all nice, but what happens if they don't actually buy? I mean, because you can't really hold them to it. It's by working really closely with them, so they can't really, with some self-esteem, not follow it. Or
I never thought of that actually, because it never happened to me.
Well, you just have to
I
take the
think
risk.
you cannot.
What's the option?
Yeah.
You have to fulfill, and I think at the really first customer, I a little bit over-delivered. So I made the product that good and that much better than they had. So they just couldn't refuse it. They couldn't refuse it.
That's a very good
And
start.
I had to trust them, of course, because otherwise I would be toasted. I had invested both money, but most of my time. It took 6 months from starting until I delivered to that customer. So it was mainly trust. Afterwards, I can say I met him, and he has explained to me when my company was a couple of hundred employees, and he said, actually, Nicolas, when I signed that LOI, the really first one with the local customer, he said, I didn't think you would pull it off. I didn't think the products would work, but I thought I'll give it a chance. And then I showed it worked in the machine, and they started giving me the purchase orders. So it was trust.
And I think that, quite often the distance between the letter of intent and you wanting to deliver is a great period of time to build a relationship with a customer and to continually update them, bring them on board, bring them on the journey, so that you don't get 6-8 months down the track and they go, we were just kidding, right? You want to know all the way through that they're actually aware of what's happening. So it's managing the sales process there. This is a classic. No sales professional would leave a sales lead that important cold for 6 months and then just knock on the door. There's going to be follow-up, there's going to be connection. So a really important piece of the puzzle is continually building that relationship with the client, with the person who's going to buy the product. Yeah, they're very, very important. So almost out of time, I just want to end with one question, which is that, I get to go out and teach pitching in a lot of the startup incubators and accelerators, etc. And extremely app heavy in terms of I'm making an app. I don't see that much people willing to take the hard road. So are you hopeful about deep tech in Sweden?
Well, we have some great examples here. I think there are some others. So I would.
Some of the
saying
most
no would be
successful
absolutely impossible.
Yeah, some of the most successful companies on the planet, like Apple,
Mm.
is a hardware and software company.
Yeah.
And we are all hardware and
Yeah.
software companies.
And we probably have more software engineers than we have hardware. all of
Absolutely,
us.
me too.
Yeah.
And so I think the combination of hardware with advanced software and firmware, when we have good margins, and we have that because of the unique software. When you only do pure hardware, like knockoff or some other product, then you are much more forced to compete on price and, with a bigger market. But when you have more advanced things, then you can definitely survive.
You're out there
And
investing.
I do
looking at
believe
companies.
that there is a big advantage right now to be a Swedish company with the security and privacy conversations going on around China,
Mhm.
which is a little unpolitical to say, but yes, that's the reality.
Okay. I won't ask you to expand on it now, but definitely when the camera shuts off, I want to hear more about that.
Of course, a pure software product is much easier to scale. But if you just compare it, deep tech, I think yes, there will be more software companies over time, but right now maybe a little bit too few that really have a product. And the other observation is that it's not that easy to do an app anymore. A couple of years ago when it started, you could do an app with like 1-2 engineers and get it up on the App Store and so on. But the demands for an app have really gone up here. So you need quite many engineers to do an app and to really maintain it.
Mhm.
So it's not that easy that I would say compared to that, I could do a nice circuit board in half the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really interesting. We're out of time, but I really appreciate your time to come here. Things Wall of Famers. It's been great to speak with you. Nicolas, Stina and Martin, thank you very much.
Thank you.